Sink. Sink into the floor. That was the last thing Chris heard before he plunged into a dark and empty space, completely trapped in silence and stillness. That place is known as the Sunken place from Jordan Peele's film Get Out. You're probably wondering, why was Chris unable to speak? Why did Chris lose all the control only from hearing that sentence? Why was he the one who became a victim? Why was he paralyzed? Most importantly, what does the scene aim to convey? This video essay will analyze how the Sunken place from Get Out 2017 is not merely a psychological horror scene, but it acts as a metaphor and implicit critique of systemic racism, which is racism rooted in systems that perpetuate and normalize unequal treatment and discrimination against people of color. This video essay is intended to reveal how white supremacy, as an expression of systemic oppression, continues to marginalize and dehumanize Black people in society. Furthermore, this video will also examine Black representation by exploring how Hollywood often portrays Black people through mistreatments and stereotypes, specifically in portraying them as victims of violence. Let me provide you with the background first. Chris is an African-American photographer from Brooklyn. One day, his girlfriend named Rose Armitage invited him to her family house in upstate New York. At first, Chris was anxious about how the Armitage would react to him being an African-American guy. Chris went there with Rose, yet he kept noticing strange things about the Armitage, specifically in their view of Black people. Starting from the progressive behavior of her family that kept giving implicit racist remarks, how the maid and the gardener, both Black people, acted so peculiarly, and how he eventually got hypnotized and entered the Sunken place. However, what is the Sunken place? In the movie, the Sunken place refers to a state in which the person gets hypnotized and entered into an outer space-like void, leaving the person paralyzed and locked up in their own head. This situation is triggered by the person's trauma and by hearing certain noises. In this scene, Rose's mother, Missy Armitage, who was a hypnotherapist, manipulates Chris by asking questions about his late mother and by using the sound of a teacup, which let Chris plunge into the Sunken place. According to Jordan Peele himself, in a Los Angeles Times interview, the Sunken place is his way of critiquing systemic racism and the oppression of Black people. It serves as a metaphor for the marginalization of Black people where the system took away their agency and their voice. In this case, Chris's paralysis represents how systemic racism strips Black people of their voice and autonomy, illustrating the continued dehumanization and mistreatment of Black people to benefit the white people. It was the cult known as the Order of the Coagula that was responsible for the exploitation of Black people. Founded by the Armitage, this cult was a group of rich monoracial white people who dehumanized and exploited minority groups, specifically Black people. At first, they interacted with the Black people in an admiring manner, constantly asking them about their physical features, making them seem like they were enemies. In reality, this cult carried out numerous cruel actions, such as capturing, paralyzing, beating on people of color, as well as performing operations to remove parts of their bodies and implant them to the bodies of the winning members. The way the Coagula treated Black people reveals a form of dehumanization where they viewed Black people as if they were luxury rather than human beings. These actions reflect the concept of colorblindness, given that the Coagula came to embrace diversity. They concealed their racism behind a positive attitude and acted as if race was not an issue at all. Yet they primarily viewed Chris through his race and treated him according to certain stereotypes of Black people. These actions reflect a form of colorblind racism, although they did not directly express racist views to Chris. This also illustrates the influence of white supremacy in its attempt to demean Black people's dignity. That scene in the Get Out serves as an implicit critique of systemic racism, revealing the Coagula's actions as a respected upper-middle-class social group were actually rooted in stereotypes, racial discrimination, and practices designed to marginalize and oppress Black people. Get Out exposes how white supremacy can arbitrarily control over and dominate the freedoms of other racial groups in the way the Coagula feel superior in taking actions through the system they set up, even though those actions are detrimental to other minority groups. The metaphors depicted by Peele in this film are intended to convey the message to the audience that racism and oppression towards people of color continue to exist in society, highlighting that racial inequality can persist behind a facade of social attitude that appears to embrace equality. This demonstrates that racism in a society can occur not only through direct discrimination, but also from people who perform allyship. Although Get Out is an outstanding film in raising the issue of racism, it is disheartening to see people of color continually portrayed as victims of violence, both in society and in Hollywood films. On the subject of Hollywood, the issue presented in Get Out is one that is frequently found in this industry. There have been portrayals of marginalization of people of color in the Hollywood industry, where they are depicted as the victim of violence rooted in racial discrimination. For example, Khalil Harris from The Hate You Give, Martin Robinson in the episode Route 666 of Supernatural, Ben from The Night of the Living Dead, Halloran from The Shining, and many more. Most of the ones I have mentioned are in the horror genre. People of color characters are frequently represented as those with the least backstory and are most likely the victim of death, a pattern that can be found in film studies under the trope, the black guy dies first. This may be linked by the long history of the racial biases within the industry, illustrating racism remains entrenched in Hollywood. Therefore, the scriptwriters in this industry have often failed to develop genuine and meaningful backstories for black characters featured in the Hollywood films, as Hollywood industry has been a white-dominated industry for decades. To achieve equality in the film industry, Hollywood should represent people of color in ways that go beyond trauma-centered storyline and portray them in a more fair and meaningful manner. By portraying people of color through a profound storyline in Hollywood, as explained by Stuart Hall's theory of representation, several representations are dispensable for communicating cultural values and beliefs. Why is this important? Meaningful representation allows audiences of people of color to feel included while challenging racial stereotypes they have long faced. This aims to empower marginalized groups to break free from identity constructed by society. In conclusion, the films that we watch often contain layers of meaning and messages that are worth understanding. Get Out by Jordan Peele also conveys messages about systemic racism and highlights the ongoing struggle for racial equality in society. Understanding the metaphor of the sunken place as a form of systemic racism invites viewers to comprehend that Get Out offers a critique in relation to marginalization, dehumanization, and the exploitation of people of color, issues that still exist in society and within the Hollywood industry. That was all for me. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you around.